On August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina made landfall in New Orleans, Louisiana. The storm devastated the city, causing widespread destruction and displacing thousands of residents. All told, more than 1,300 people lost their lives in the hurricane and subsequent flooding, which left more than 80% of the city and surrounding area underwater for weeks and caused more than $125 billion in damages, making it the costliest Atlantic hurricane in U.S. history to the time. The disaster highlighted the shortcomings of federal disaster relief at the time, triggering a restructuring of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and the government's response to future crises. But the storm and its aftermath also highlight differences in food security, food justice, and food sovereignty, and it's those concepts we'll examine in this video. Let's start by defining those concepts. By food security, we mean the state in which all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Food security is often measured through indicators like food availability, food access, utilization, and stability over time. The primary focus of food security is on ensuring that enough food is available and accessible to meet the population's needs. Food justice is a holistic and comprehensive approach to ensuring equitable access to healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food for all communities, particularly those historically marginalized communities. Unlike food security, food justice seeks to address systemic inequalities in the food system related to race, class, and gender, and seeks to transform the food system to eliminate disparities in food access, production, and food-related policies. Food justice also emphasizes the importance of community control, sustainable practices, and fair labor conditions throughout the food chain. Food sovereignty goes beyond food security by advocating for the rights of peoples, communities, and nations to define their own agricultural and food policies. It emphasizes local control over food systems, the right to healthy, culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and the prioritization of local food economies over global markets. Food sovereignty seeks to empower communities to have a say in how their food is produced, distributed, and consumed. Let's look at the differences between those three in a bit more focus. In terms of scope and focus, food security tends to emphasize ensuring sufficient food availability, access, and utilization for all people. Food justice emphasizes addressing systemic inequalities and ensuring equitable access to food, fair labor conditions, and community empowerment. And food sovereignty focuses on the right to control food systems, local food policies, and sustainable, culturally appropriate food production. In terms of approach and methodology, food security is primarily concerned with metrics and strategies to ensure a stable food supply. Food justice advocates for structural changes to address racial, economic, and social injustices in the food system. And food sovereignty emphasizes local control, participatory decision-making, and sustainable practices in food production. Finally, we can differentiate between the three in terms of the key principles in each. Food security prioritizes the availability of sufficient quantities of food available on a consistent basis. It seeks to ensure that people have adequate resources, for example in terms of income, transportation, and so on, to obtain appropriate quantities of food, and that they have the knowledge and resources to use food effectively for good nutrition. Finally, food security also emphasizes the need for a stable food system with access to adequate food remaining stable over time, even during times of economic or environmental stress. Food justice asserts that food is a basic human right, not a commodity or a privilege. As a result, everyone should have equal access to healthy, affordable food, regardless of race, class, gender, geography, or other factors. From the food justice framework, this is best achieved through community empowerment, where communities have control over their food systems and the power to shape them to meet their needs and cultural preferences. Food justice also emphasizes the importance of both economic and environmental sustainability in food systems. Workers throughout the food system should be treated fairly and paid a living wage, and food production should not harm the environment, but rather should contribute positively to ecological health. Finally, food sovereignty approaches maintain that communities have the right to decide how their food is produced, distributed, and consumed, an idea often referred to as self-determination, and that such a system, by definition, mandates that food production should be based on local needs and priorities, not on the demands of the global market. Sovereignty-based approaches emphasize the need for sustainable food systems, often rooted in agroecology and the importance of respecting and preserving traditional foodways and knowledge. And so, if we return to our post-Katrina case study, we can see how these three approaches to the food system would understand the crisis and how the post-crisis food system should be reconstructed in fundamentally different ways. In the immediate aftermath of Katrina, the primary concern was on food security, ensuring that people had access to enough food to survive. This involved emergency food aid like the distribution of MREs, meals ready to eat, and bottled water by FEMA and other organizations. In the medium term, the government sought to reestablish and maintain food supply chains disrupted by the hurricane. While crucial in the short term, this approach did not address the underlying or root causes of food insecurity, like poverty or the lack of access to healthy food options. As the city began to rebuild, food justice advocates highlighted the inequalities in the food system that were exacerbated by the hurricane. They pointed out that low-income communities of color, which were disproportionately affected by the storm, were more likely to live in food deserts, areas with limited access to fresh, healthy food, and to rely on convenience stores for their meals. Food justice advocates thus focused on longer-term rebuilding of food systems in a way that centered on questions of social justice and addressed these disparities. In this context, food justice-rooted activities included local efforts to build community gardens, farmers markets, food cooperatives, and other initiatives intended to ensure that marginalized communities had fair access to nutritious food and economic opportunities in the food sector. Finally, in the longer-term recovery, food sovereignty movements focused on empowering local communities to reclaim control of their food systems. In the context of New Orleans, this meant supporting local farms and fishers, promoting traditional foodways, and advocating for policies that would protect small-scale agriculture and sustainable practices. Efforts were made to ensure that communities had a say in how their food was grown and distributed, fostering the development of a more resilient and equitable food system that could withstand future shocks over the long term. An example of this kind of approach is provided by Sprout NOLA, a community-based group that provides technical assistance to urban farmers, especially small-scale farmers of color, that had historically been marginalized by federal disaster relief programs. But that's it for now. As always, thanks for watching. Bye.